Welcome to our Harmonyus podcast series. My name is Michael Francis Lott, and I am here with author Peter Wells, who is the author of the book Notes from the West Pole. And today we're going to be diving into his piece called The Oneness.
After a small success in California, I traveled around the world through various cultures, including an overland odyssey from England to India, and returned to California a changed person. I was no longer willing to play the game of winners and losers in the hunt for success. Now I needed more from myself. I moved away from the city to an old sheep ranch in the coast mountains of Northern California and lived quietly there with my wife, Diane. And the seasons rolled around, and my view of the world changed, and I saw deeper into myself. Then, in the sudden silence, I heard the song of the earth. "We are one," it sang, all of us included. And then came the news I'd been waiting for. I am included in this oneness. I belong here. I am not divisible between good and evil. I am whole. In fact, there is nothing wrong with me. The problem is not in me. The problem is in the divisive social order I've inherited. When I visited the city to tell my friends the good news, they were aghast. As far as they were concerned, I had inexplicably abandoned success and disappeared into the mountains. Now I reappear, long-haired and bearded, passionately talking about wholeness. Apparently, I'd lost it. They didn't get it at all. How could they? Their daily reality was focused on achieving success and wealth and avoiding failure and loss. Life was a struggle between two opposing forces. The idea that these opposing forces could be one was unthinkable, would lead to certain failure. But once you have realized the oneness, you can't unrealize it. Now you know it. You can't unknow it. Now I was stuck in the oneness. How on earth was I going to deal with the two-ness of my culture?
So I can say that I really resonate with this story. My own personal experience reflects that of me sort of abandoning my old paradigm, my old mode of operation, and going off and living on farms and going into the wilderness, and then coming back and seeing my family and my friends, and oh my God, what happened to Michael? He's gone crazy. And it was a bit of a challenge to come back and to figure out how to relate to my old life and my old relationships from this renewed perspective. So with you coming into that new awareness, that rebirth, how did you integrate back into your life?
Well, I was in that hunt for that November mood. And so the oneness for me was that November mood. And I entered it and I celebrated it. I was fully in love with the consciousness that was now a part of me. When I went back to the city and spoke to my friends, they didn't have a clue of what I was talking about. And I felt kind of strange myself, even as I tried to explain to him that everything is one, dude, but it isn't in our society. In our society, we have to be very concerned with the duality. And that duality is there really as a structure of how to think. And once you realize the oneness, you don't need to think that way. You don't want to think that way. What you want is to just celebrate the being that you are and the oneness of the whole thing. The big deal is, how does one apply this realization of the oneness to the daily life? Mm-hmm. And the point is, I think, that you just do it, because the oneness supersedes the two-ness. The two-ness has to give way to the oneness. The oneness is already there, and it doesn't really relate to the two-ness. The two-ness is the organization of society. So long as we organize society into a dualism, then our ability to be a part of the oneness is not really going to register. The fact is that the two-ness is just a device. The idea of the rich, the poor, the winner, the loser, the success, the failure, all of that stuff is a concoction. It's just created. We don't have to participate in that. Even as we work in society, we don't have to consider ourselves profitable or losing, or, as I say, success or failure. We are what we are, and we adapt to the world we're in, but we don't necessarily take on the dualisms that we've been educated to accept.
For me, one of the things that comes up in that is, yes, the society definitely is operating from this dualism, but also when we look out into nature, there's two sexes. There's male, there's female. There's two hemispheres of the brain. Also, there's night and there's day. So there seems to be, even beneath the social structure, this sort of duality that is just prevalent in the world that we live. So how would you address the oneness within the context of this world that seems to be operating from two-ness?
Well, it's only when we call it the two-ness that it isn't the oneness. And the idea that our society is dictating to us it's not one that we've carried with us for millions of years. It's recently been devised. Right now, we have an absolutely divided culture in the United States. The conflict between the representatives, the senators, the president is everywhere. There is nobody really representing the whole population. Everything is being divided. That division doesn't work to our benefit. That division obscures the real satisfaction of the wholeness. We have a whole country, a whole nation, a whole planet, and a whole person. And that wholeness is the game, not the two-ness. The two-ness is, I think it's obsolete. It's out. You can say male and female is a two-ness. Well, not really. The thing that's happening is we're one species, and the male and female are needed to perpetuate that one species. And the wholeness, the thing that we love more than anything else, is the love between man and woman, which is of oneness, is not of two-ness. You can say day and night are two. No, you can't. The day and night are just divisions that we ascribe to the changing relation to the sun. Once again, the sun is one, the earth is one, and any divisions we want to play on that are superfluous. We don't have to do it.
Beautifully said. So what I'm taking from this conversation is that beneath the two-ness, there's an underlying unity. So I would translate that into, how do we operate from this mode of interconnectedness, from this mode of oneness, while still participating in the experience of relationship? Because even though on the deepest level, me and you are joined, we're still having this experience right now of Michael Lott and Peter Wells, right? So how do we navigate this relationship while still honoring where we are connected, where we are joined?
Well, we're still only in the oneness. The fact that you have a different name and I have a different name doesn't change it. We're still alive on this planet, being ourselves. And any division you want to present is actually superfluous to the whole idea of what we're doing here. There's nothing really that needs to be divided. Okay, if you want to play football or if you want to play a team game, you have one side against the other. Well, that's the system. That's the way of life. But one doesn't have to do that. Also, I would say that understanding and recognizing the oneness brings to every relationship a strength that it wouldn't otherwise have. If the relationship is concerned with the dualisms, the divided understanding, it won't work. It's only the oneness that's going to work, because what we're trying to achieve actually is a mutual benefit. We're trying to achieve something that works for both of us. And really what we want is for the whole country to feel that oneness. We don't need the two-ness as a guide. We need the oneness as a guide.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love what you're saying about achieving a mutual benefit. And you would think that that would be obvious, to us as a species, to us as civilizations. It's like, we're all on this earth together. Why not work together to better everybody's life? So where do we get hung up in that? It seems so simple when you look at it from that larger perspective, yet we still are struggling to operate from that mutually beneficial place.
Well, because our social order doesn't present us with a mutually beneficial place. We have a punitive rule of law that divides us between criminal and citizen. And the idea behind our whole government structure is of division. We are in the process, I believe, of becoming one human family, of understanding that we're one human family, and that the divisions are laid over that already existing fact. All around the world, every country uses a divisive system to keep its people under control. It was Machiavelli who said, if you want to control people, divide and conquer. And we've been conquered. We've been conquered by division. And we're so hung up on division that we don't get the fullest satisfaction of our whole self, of our whole human family and the whole planet.
Wow. So you're kind of saying that these divisions were kind of superimposed upon our perception, so it would be easier for us to be controlled in a way? Is that sort of what you're saying? Okay.
Yes. It isn't all with such a sinister point of view, perhaps.
Okay.
But the idea that we divide ourselves has gained precedence in all of our organizations. And yet, each organization we create has to be looked at as a whole and be indivisible. I mean, it's interesting that the individual is indivisible. I mean, it's another word for indivisible. And we're not divisible. We're not. And so pretending that we are, the law says we're divisible. The political system says we're divisible. Socially, we could be considered divisible. But in fact, we're not. We're whole. And we're enjoying this life as a whole being on a whole planet with a whole human family. Any division that we want to use is extraneous. It's not going to change that.
Yeah, and the way that I sort of look at all of this is the healing of the self and the healing of our civilization kind of coincide, because I think that the civilization in the social structure is sort of a projection and a reflection of the individual mentality. We all kind of share a group mind. So it's like if the one sees themselves as divided and as fragmented, subconsciously, of course, then they're going to project those divisions out in their relationships, out to the society, and thus we will create a social system based on how we sense ourselves as divided. So I think that the healing really comes from the inside out and learning how to see ourselves as whole, as unified, and then that goes out into the world in our relationships and creating a more harmonious social structure.
Well, of course, it would be wonderful if our governments and our social orders really understood the fact that we're here as one whole entity. But the control of the people is all about, organizing according to one value as opposed to another. There's good and evil, there's friend and enemy, there's Republican and Democrat. All of these divisions don't exist in our being. They're created in order to keep us busy, to subject us.
Right.
We don't need them. And in fact, right now, it's almost essential that we approach the oneness rather than the division. You know, all around the world, every single government believes that it has power over each of its citizens. And it wields a rule of law that's completely divisive, and also a whole economy that is divisive. There's the rich and the poor, and the poor are helped and the rich are tried to be controlled. But we're not really in society, and the way that the society's economy works, the divisions impede us from our fullest satisfaction. Because as you mentioned earlier, what we really want is a mutual benefit. What we want is to make things work. And we make them work as a whole, not by division. The division impedes the fullest expression of the whole event.
Now, from your own personal perspective, how do we access and reveal and embody that fullest expression of wholeness? How do we do that? How do we find that within ourselves and within our relationships?
Well, you know, it's really difficult because we have been taught and indoctrinated with these divisive systems, and we've applied those divisions to ourselves. Am I right or wrong? Am I good or am I evil? Am I sane or insane? All of the stuff that can be judged, we're doing. And it doesn't help us. It doesn't really make things work. We have to look at things as a whole if we want them to work.
So it's kind of like what I think I hear you saying is that we have to go through this process of undoing the divisions that have been...
That's what I meant to say.
Right.
The idea really is resolved with the inward journey. Because it's the inward journey to the oneness of oneself that enables one to clear the way of the divisions, of the judgments, of the guilt, of the blame, of the sin. All the stuff that we've been taught to honor, we have to let go of that. And if we go deeply within ourselves, we find the oneness of this being. We are this oneness. We're not pretending to be one. We're pretending to be two.
Right. And it's like what you said in this piece. You came to this realization where you were like, there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with me. And even as I say those words and I read them on the page, it's like there's a certain relief that washes over my being. I can feel on a visceral level. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm okay.
Well, you've been judged so many times and evaluated at school. You know, your parents who have inherited the way of life too are judging you, evaluating you. Is he doing well or is he doing poorly? You know, and so we're steeped in these notions. And we have to accept those notions and free ourselves from them consciously in order to really enjoy who we are. If we're thinking that we're better or worse, or that we should do this and shouldn't do that, that there's a right and a wrong way to be in this country, we're not going to feel the benefit of the known wholeness, of the oneness.
Right. So it seems like at the core of healing ourselves both on a collective and an individual level comes with really self-acceptance.
Yes.
At the heart of it.
And yes, it is. And the whole self. And healing is the same stem as whole and holy.
Oh.
So the healing is making it whole. When we heal as an individual, we are healing ourselves as a whole. And healing humanity at the moment is a very big order. War is all about division and dualism. It's saying that one side is better than the other and it has to defeat the other side. I mean, it's idiotic. It's not even really paying attention to our condition.
Yeah.
I mean, we've just come through long age of wars. And now we can see beyond that, but how do we actually apply it? How do we actually allow the consciousness to be indivisible, and which is what it is? And how do we become, in our consciousness, one human family without dividing ourselves into opposition, without judging ourselves as evil?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Peter. Until next time, join us for another episode of Harmonious. Have a good week. Stay connected with us and get the book Notes from the West Pole on our website, www.harmonious.com, and that's spelled Harmony Us with a Y. Thanks for listening.